The orange line I had painted across the hinge pin split in two when the dock leveler took the load. I killed the pump, lowered the platform, and hung my red out-of-service tag on the control box. Before I could explain what had failed, Cal stepped around me and pulled the tag off. "Sign it, or I'll write you up," he said. He said it in front of Marcus Bell, the client's facilities supervisor, with my inspection tablet already open in his hand. The work order on the screen no longer said what it had said that morning. "I'm not approving a failed repair." Cal's eyes moved once toward Marcus. "Then you're refusing a direct instruction." "I'm refusing to falsify the inspection." 10 minutes later, he wrote me up at a folding table in the receiving office. I took the reprimand in silence because Cal was my manager. I also took it in silence because he was my sister's husband, and I wanted to know why he looked so relieved. The receiving office had one chair, 2 dead fluorescent tubes, and a coffee maker with a handwritten sign asking grown adults not to brew coffee without putting the pot underneath. Marcus stood near the door with his arms folded. He was a broad, quiet man who had spent 30 years in distribution buildings and could identify a bad bearing by the sound it made through a concrete wall. Cal filled out the disciplinary form in hard block letters. Insubordination, unnecessary client disruption, refusal to certify completed repair. His pen made a small tear in the paper beneath the word refusal. "You want to add anything?" he asked. "Yes." He looked up. The loaded cycle displaced the hinge pin 11:30 seconds. The rear tube is distorted. The platform is not safe for forklift traffic. That's your technical opinion. It's a measurement. Marcus shifted his weight against the wall. Cal glanced at him, then turned the form around. "Sign acknowledging receipt." I read every line. My father had taught me never to sign anything while somebody was talking, so I waited until the room went completely still. Then I wrote, "Receipt acknowledged only," and signed my name beneath it. Cal tore off the pink copy and handed it to me. The paper was warm from his palm. I tucked it beneath the elastic band of my field notebook and walked back out to Bay 14. The dock leveler sat flush with the warehouse floor. 6 feet of scratched steel painted the particular gray of machinery nobody noticed until it stopped working. Beyond the open bay, a refrigerated trailer idled in the July heat. Its compressor coughed every 20 seconds. Inside the warehouse, pallet jacks chirped, and reverse alarms answered one another like mechanical birds. My red tag was lying on Cal's clipboard. I picked it up. "Don't," he said behind me. I threaded the tag's wire through the control box latch anyway. "Lena, the inspection failed. The tag stays until the hinge assembly is replaced. We need the bay. Then replace the assembly. We just spent 9 hours repairing it. You spent 9 hours repairing the wrong part of it." That landed on our welder, Gus Herrera, who was packing leads into the side compartment of the service truck. Gus stopped winding the cable. He was 62, built like a refrigerator, and had eyebrows expressive enough to conduct an argument without the rest of his face. "I welded what was on the ticket," he said. "I know you did." Cal gave him a look. "Nobody's blaming anybody." Gus's eyebrows climbed. Marcus came out of the receiving office holding a styrofoam cup. "How long for the replacement?" 2 days if the manufacturer has the hinge tube," I said. 3 if we fabricate it. Cal answered at the same time. "We can have this bay running in an hour." Marcus looked from him to me. "With loaded traffic?" Cal rubbed the back of his neck. His wedding ring flashed in the sun, the same brushed silver band my sister Paula had slid onto his finger in a courthouse ceremony 12 years earlier. "It passed 3 empty cycles," he said. Marcus took a sip of coffee. "That wasn't my question." For one brief, stupid second, I thought Cal might back down. He was good at that, good at making retreat look like a revised plan, good at giving a client what they needed without letting them see what it had cost him. It was one of the reasons my father had hired him before he and Paula ever started dating. Instead, Cal said, "Lena's test introduced side-loading outside normal operating conditions." I stared at him. A forklift entered straight with a centered pallet. The left tire was 6 inches off center. The deck is 84 inches wide. Could you two finish this at your shop? Marcus asked. His voice never rose. That made it worse. Cal smiled as if Marcus had rescued both of us. Absolutely. We'll get another inspector here this afternoon. You can get whoever you want, I said. The measurement won't change. Cal waited until Marcus went back inside. Then he stepped close enough that Gus suddenly became very interested in the compartments on his truck. What exactly are you trying to do? Cal asked me. Keep a forklift from dropping a wheel into a failed deck. You think I'd put somebody at risk? I think you promised 12 bays by Friday. His jaw moved. Get your tools. I crouched beside the rear hinge and packed my dial indicator into its foam case. The orange paint marker lay beside it, uncapped. The tip had picked up black grease. Cal watched me wipe it clean with a rag. You always did love your little lines, he said. They tell me when something moved. Sometimes things move. Not 11:30 seconds. He walked away before I could ask him about the work order. That was the part I couldn't fit into what I knew about him. The repair instructions had been specific when I opened the job that morning. Replace distorted rear hinge assembly. Do not return to service until loaded inspection. Cal had written them himself after I sent photos from the initial assessment. At lunch, while Gus and I were waiting for the rental forklift, the wording changed. Dress existing weld. Install oversized pin. Cycle test. Return to service. The app showed Cal's initials beside the revision, but our software displayed only the current text. No strikeout, no prior version. If I hadn't copied the original instructions into my notebook, it would have looked as though the replacement had never been ordered. Cal knew I wrote everything down. He teased me about it at Thanksgiving. So why had he changed a record he knew I could contradict? Gus climbed into the passenger seat while I loaded my cases. Cal stood with one hand on the hood. I'll drive him back, he said. You go straight to the shop. Gus shut the passenger door, opened it again, and got out. My lunch is in her cooler. We got food at the shop. Mine's got my name on it. Cal looked at the blue cooler behind my seat. A strip of masking tape across the lid said, Gus, in letters big enough to read from traffic. You planning to guard that sandwich with your life? Cal asked. My wife made it. Then I understand. It was a small exchange, almost friendly. Cal could turn his charm on without warming up. Gus took the seat again, and Cal tapped the roof twice before stepping back. As I pulled out, I saw him remove the red tag. I braked. Marcus emerged from the receiving office before I could open my door. He crossed the concrete apron, took the tag from Cal's hand, and threaded it back through the latch himself. Cal said something I couldn't hear. Marcus walked away with his coffee. Gus unwrapped half his sandwich. You want me to tell you what happened before you got there? Yes. You're not going to like it. I haven't liked much today. He chewed, swallowed, and brushed crumbs from his shirt. Tube was stretched. I told Cal an oversized pin wouldn't hold it. He told me the new assembly was stuck at the manufacturer and asked if I could buy him 48 hours. What did you say? I said steel doesn't know what day it is. Despite myself, I laughed. Gus nodded. That was his reaction too, except with less joy. Why'd you weld it? Because he changed the ticket to a repair, and because I thought we were buying 48 hours with the bay locked out. Then he said you'd do an empty cycle and release it. I kept my eyes on the road. He told you I agreed? He said you understood the situation. That was Cal's favorite sentence. It could mean anything from Lena has reviewed the specifications to Lena is about to be furious, but I'll be elsewhere when it happens. Did you put your measurement on the ticket? Gus looked out the window. Gus. I wrote, tube appears stretched. Appears? It was 90 degrees in the shade, and Cal was standing behind me, breathing like an irritated bull. What did the caliper say? 21 thousandths beyond maximum. That was more than twice the manufacturer's limit. Write it in your notebook when we get back. He glanced at me. You think he'll come after me? I think he already used your weld to cover his promise. Gus folded the wax paper around the uneaten half of his sandwich. Paula, no? I don't know. That answer sat between us for the rest of the drive. Mercer Dock Door occupied a low brick building behind a tire warehouse in South Bend. My father had bought it when the roof leaked and the parking lot was mostly weeds. He used to say the building taught fiscal discipline because every rainstorm offered us a fresh estimate. The roof no longer leaked. Paula had refinanced the property, paved the lot, and turned the front office into something clients could enter without signing a tetanus waiver. She ran payroll, purchasing, insurance, and every other part of the business that made money disappear more slowly. Cal ran service. Neil Beckett, my father's former operations manager, owned 30% and had been threatening to retire for 4 years. When I parked, Cal's truck was already there. "He drives fast when he's righteous," Gus said. "He drives fast when there's air conditioning at the destination." Inside, the office smelled like printer toner, and the cinnamon gum our dispatcher, Tasha Green, chewed when she was trying not to swear. She saw me and stopped chewing. "That bad?" I asked. "Cal wants your tablet." "He had my tablet. He wants it again. Then he should have kept it." Tasha lowered her voice. "Paula's in his office." Of course she was. I set the tablet on Tasha's counter. A yellow banner across the screen showed Bay 14 waiting for inspection completion. "Don't close that work order," I said. "I don't close field orders. Don't let anyone close it under my login." Her eyes flicked toward Cal's office. "Is this a normal Lena request or a Lena request where I should suddenly remember I have dental surgery? What's the difference? In one, I say yes. In the other, I say yes after turning off my location." I almost smiled. The second one. Gus headed toward the break room with his cooler. Before he reached it, Cal opened his door. Paula sat behind him in one of the guest chairs. She wore a green blouse with the sleeves pushed to her elbows, and she had removed her glasses to rub the bridge of her nose. Our father used to do the same thing when an invoice and reality had stopped speaking. Cal pointed at the tablet. "Conference room, now." Tasha looked at her monitor. I took my field notebook with me. The conference room had a walnut table too large for the room because Cal had bought it used from a closing bank. One corner blocked a cabinet, so we kept spare coffee filters in a drawer nobody could open. Paula waited until I sat down. "What happened?" she asked. Cal remained standing. She refused to clear the bay after a completed repair, contradicted me in front of Marcus, and tagged out client equipment after I directed her not to. "The hinge failed under load," I said. "He disputes the test conditions," Paula said. I looked at her. "He told you before I got here." "He called me from the site." "Did he tell you he changed the repair instructions?" Cal finally sat. Paula put on her glasses. "What instructions?" I opened my notebook to that morning's page and slid it across the table. The original wording sat beneath the date and job number in my handwriting. Cal barely looked at it. "That was preliminary. You entered it as the work scope. Before I spoke to the supplier told you to put an oversized pin in a stretch tube. The supplier told me a full assembly would take 3 weeks." "That isn't what I asked." Paula held up one hand. "Lena." One word, delivered in our father's old conference room, and I understood the arrangement. Cal had arrived first. He had explained the deadline, the back charge, the client's surge, the repair cost, and probably the look on my face when I refused him. Paula was not asking what happened. She was asking me to make what happened survivable. Cal leaned forward. "We can disagree about a repair. We cannot have an employee accusing her manager of falsification in front of a client. You ordered me to approve something that failed. I ordered you to use judgment. You handed me the tablet and threatened to write me up. And then you forced me to do it." Paula closed her eyes. There it was, the sentence that changed the temperature in the room. Cal seemed to hear it after he said it. He sat back, but he did not take it back. I pulled the pink reprimand from beneath my notebook's elastic and laid it on the table. Paula read my notation above the signature. "You signed this in front of Marcus?" she asked Cal. He was present. "You disciplined her in a client office." She gave me no choice. I looked at my sister. Do you want my inspection result? She took too long to answer. I want both of you to stop making this personal. It became personal when your husband used my name to certify his shortcut. Cal's chair scraped backward. Watch yourself. Paula turned on him. Sit down. He did. That surprised all three of us. For a few seconds, we could hear the shop radio through the wall and the metallic bang of somebody dropping a socket. Paula touched the edge of my reprimand. The bay is still out of service? When I left. Cal stared at the table. That was answer enough. I stood and took back my notebook, leaving the reprimand under Paula's hand. I'm going home. It's 3:15, Cal said. I started at 5:40. You're scheduled until 4. Then pay me until 4. I reached the door before Paula spoke. Sunday dinner is still at 6. It was such an ordinary sentence that I nearly turned around. For a moment, I could see the table in her dining room. Cal carving whatever he had overcooked on the grill. Paula pretending not to notice him, giving me the smallest piece. All of us discussing fuel costs or baseball because those subjects had no sharp edges. I'll be there, I said. Outside, heat shimmered above the new pavement. I sat in my truck with the air conditioning running and checked the inspection app. Bay 14 was no longer waiting for completion. The work order had been closed. Under Inspector, it showed my employee number. For 3 seconds, I wondered if heat could make a person misread her own employee number. Then I took a screenshot. The completion time was 3:08, while I had been sitting in the conference room. The inspection result said pass, no defects observed after repair. Beneath that, in the notes field, someone had written, platform cycled under operational conditions. I went back inside. Tasha looked at my face and reached beneath her desk for her purse. Dental surgery? She asked. Who closed Bay 14? Her hand stopped. Cal came out with your tablet. He used my employee number. I didn't see what he entered. Did he use my password? He didn't ask me for one. The app had kept me signed in. We all did it when moving between jobs because the software logged us out whenever a technician needed it most, usually while wearing gloves in sleet. I set the tablet on her counter. Take a picture of that screen with your phone. Why? Because if you email the screenshot, it'll look like I made it after the fact. Your picture will have its own timestamp. Tasha looked toward the conference room. The door was still closed. You're asking me to get between you and Cal. No, I'm asking you to photograph a company record currently visible at your desk. That sounds like getting between you and Cal with better grammar. She took the picture. Send it to me and yourself, I said. You really know how to make dental surgery sound relaxing. The office door opened. Paula came out alone carrying my pink reprimand. She saw the tablet. Lena, go home. That order was closed under my number. I know. The calmness of her answer frightened me more than Cal's anger had. And Cal says he entered the completion because the client needed the repair documented. Under my number. He says the system populated the assigned inspector. Then reopen it. We can't reopen a billed work order. Tasha made a tiny choking sound that she disguised as cinnamon gum. It was billed in 7 minutes? I asked. Paula lowered her voice. Neil is looking at the software issue. This isn't a software issue. Not here. You mean not where employees can hear how an employee record was used? Go home, Lena. My sister had never ordered me out of the company our father built. She had asked me to cool off, asked me to take a drive, once asked me to leave a Christmas party before I told an insurance broker exactly where he could store his rate increase. This was different. I picked up my tablet. Paula held out her hand. That stays here. It's assigned to my truck. It's company property. So is the record Cal just falsified. Her mouth tightened. Tasha stopped chewing. I placed the tablet on the counter, put my truck keys beside it, and waited. Paula looked at the keys. What are you doing? The truck is company property, too. Don't be dramatic. I'm trying to understand which company property I'm trusted with. The conference room door opened again. Cal had been close enough to hear everything. Take the truck, he said. Leave the tablet. I'll need a ride home, I told Paula. Cal laughed once. For God's sake, I'm not driving company equipment after my manager used my credentials to pass a failed inspection. If there's a claim tonight, I don't want you discovering some other field the system populated. Tasha's eyes widened. Paula looked at Cal, and something wordless passed between them. "I'll drive you," she said. The ride took 18 minutes. Paula spent the first 12 adjusting the air conditioning in tiny increments. My house was a narrow brick bungalow with 2 maple trees and a garage that opened only if I leaned my shoulder into the door while pressing the remote. I had refinanced it after my divorce, buying out a man who liked the kitchen renovation more than the marriage. The new payment was manageable as long as I kept my normal overtime. Paula parked at the curb. "You could have called me before confronting him in front of Marcus," she said. "I was busy inspecting a dock." "You know what I mean. If I had called, what would you have done?" She watched a delivery van pass us. "I would have gotten the facts." "You had the facts in my notebook. I had your notes." "They're measurements, Paula. There's still one side." The hinge pin moved. Cal says it's seated. A pin doesn't seat by walking out. He says the assembly can be replaced during scheduled downtime. That is exactly what he entered before he changed the order. She gripped the steering wheel at 10 and 2, like she had on the day she took her driving test. "The distribution center is threatening back charges," she said. "If we lose that contract, I have 23 technicians whose mortgages matter too." "So that's the math?" "I'm telling you the pressure he's under." "I know the pressure. It's what failed the hinge." She turned toward me. "Do you think I don't care whether the repair is safe?" "I think you care about 6 things at once, and Cal knows how to make his thing the loudest." Her face changed. I had meant to hurt her, but not that precisely. I opened the door. "Sunday at 6, she said. "I heard you the first time." Inside, I put my field notebook on the kitchen table and opened it to Bay 14. Grease from my glove had marked the corner of the page. I added the closing time, the exact language of the pass result, and the fact that my tablet had been in Cal's possession. Then I drew a box around Gus's measurement, 21 thousandths beyond maximum. Tasha's photograph arrived while I was still writing. She had captured the tablet screen, the counter, and half a mug that said, "Dispatchers," because technicians need heroes. Her message underneath read, "If asked, I was photographing my mug." I saved it in 3 places. At 6 on Sunday, Cal stood at the grill wearing an apron that said, "License to Grill," which had not been true at any point in the 12 years he owned it. He lifted the lid on 4 chicken breasts that had already passed from cooked into evidence. "Perfect timing," he said. Paula carried a salad to the patio. "I told him 5 minutes ago." "She likes it dry." "I like chicken," I said. "I've accepted the dryness as part of this family." Cal smiled. He wanted the evening ordinary. That was one of his genuine talents. He could argue with a supplier until noon, fire a technician at 2, and ask that same technician for a chili recipe at 4 without seeming false. He did not think of conflict as something that changed a relationship. To Cal, conflict was weather. Once it passed, only difficult people remained wet. We ate beneath a patio umbrella that tilted slightly left. Paula talked about the neighborhood association. Cal told a story about Neil backing a service van into a stack of empty pallets in 1998. I kept waiting for one of them to mention Bay 14. Neither did. Halfway through dinner, Cal reached for the hot sauce. "I'm moving you to the Benton route Monday," he said. Paula put down her fork. The Benton route covered small warehouse accounts west of the city, mostly quarterly lubrication and minor adjustments. It meant more driving, fewer emergency calls, and almost no overtime. "Why?" I asked. "Ray knows the distribution center equipment." "So do I. The client relationship needs to settle down." "Marcus asked for Ray? I'm making a staffing decision." At dinner, he poured hot sauce onto his chicken. "You wanted us to discuss things within the family." "No." Paula wanted that. Paula looked at him. "You told me the route assignments weren't changing." "They weren't when we spoke." "What changed?" I asked. Cal cut his chicken with unnecessary force. I reviewed your disciplinary history. I don't have a disciplinary history. I have a disciplinary afternoon. You challenged my authority in front of a client. You ordered me to falsify an inspection in front of a client. Paula's fork struck her plate. Stop using that word. Which one, falsify or client? Lena. Cal leaned back. This is why I did not want to have this conversation here. You started the conversation here. I informed you of your route. I looked at Paula. Are you approving this? Cal assigns field personnel. That wasn't my question. Her silence gave me the answer. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. Cal's voice softened. The Benton route isn't punishment. How much overtime did it average last quarter? He knew the number. Paula did too. It fluctuates, he said. Mine averaged 11 hours a week. We don't guarantee overtime. I know. Then don't make it something it isn't. I stood. Paula followed me through the kitchen. Please don't leave like this. How should I leave? You know Cal. When he feels cornered, he pushes. That used to be the explanation for why he was good at collections. He is good at his job. So am I. I didn't say you weren't. You just sat there while he cut my pay over burned chicken. It isn't a pay cut. I stopped beside the front door. Paula's refrigerator hummed behind us, covered in appointment cards, takeout menus, and a photograph of our father standing beside the first service truck. In the picture, the company name was hand-painted and crooked. I can make my mortgage on 40 hours, I said. It'll be tight, but I can do it. If you're waiting for me to panic and sign whatever Cal puts in front of me, tell him to find a different lever. Her eyes moved toward the patio. I'm not waiting for you to panic. Then what are you waiting for? She didn't answer. I drove home with the windows down because the evening had cooled and because anger felt less permanent with air moving through it. Monday morning, my service truck was parked in its usual space. The tablet had been reset. My saved password was gone, and Bay 14 no longer appeared in my recent jobs. A printed route sheet waited on the windshield. Benton Cold Storage, Halpern Packaging, 3 smaller warehouses, and a machine shop whose dock seals had been patched with so much silver tape they looked gift-wrapped. Gus stood beside the truck drinking gas station coffee. You on Benton too? I asked. Nope. Cal assigned me the distribution center. Then why are you here? He handed me a folded sheet from his pocket. It was a copy of his work notes from Bay 14. Beside rear hinge tube, he had written caliper reading .021 over manufacturer max. Temporary pin repair not recommended for loaded service. Put this in the job file, I said. I did. And? Cal handed it back, said measurements belong in the inspection section, not welding. Did you sign it? Gus pointed to his name at the bottom. Keep the original, I said. Give me a copy. That is the copy. He sipped his coffee. Original is in my wife's recipe box. Romantic. She thinks I'm having an affair with paperwork. Tasha came through the side door carrying her mug and a stack of root packets. Morning, she said too brightly. She gave Gus his packet, then handed me mine. A yellow sticky note was attached beneath the first page. Do not call Cal from job sites unless work is stopped. All non-emergency questions through dispatch. I showed it to her. His instruction? I asked, word for word. So if I find something unsafe, I stop the job. That's how I read it. And if it isn't an emergency? You ask me, I ask him. He asks why you're asking. Efficient. Tasha glanced toward the office. He also wants all photos uploaded before you leave each site. No end-of-day batches. That's fine. And he wants written measurements on every failed component. That's also fine. He thinks it'll slow you down. I tucked the route sheet into my clipboard. It will. The first warehouse had a mechanical dock leveler, old enough to qualify for historic preservation. Its pull chain had been replaced with a piece of clothesline, and the maintenance supervisor swore the platform only slammed down on humid days. I spent 40 minutes clearing compacted debris from the hold-down assembly, another 20 measuring spring tension, and 6 minutes photographing everything before and after. On the repair order, I recorded each measurement, each adjustment, the client representative's name, and the exact time I returned the bay to service. At the bottom, I wrote, "No verbal changes received." I used the orange marker to stripe the adjusted hardware. By Thursday, Cal issued a new instruction. Technicians did not need to record the absence of verbal changes. By Friday, I had written it on 17 work orders. The Benton accounts began calling the office to say their paperwork had never been so clear. That did not restore my overtime. It did not erase the reprimand or reopen Bay 14. It did, however, make Cal's plan harder to explain. The more evidence he demanded, the more evidence I gave him. 2 weeks after the failed inspection, I was under a dock at Halpern Packaging when Tasha called. I answered on the second ring. "If this is a non-emergency question," I said, "please put yourself on hold and ask Cal. It's Marcus Bell." I rolled out from beneath the platform. "What about him?" "He called for you. Cal moved me off that account." I told him. "And?" "He said Bay 14 is knocking under load, and he wants to know why your red tag was in the service manager's desk." I sat up too fast and hit my shoulder on the steel frame. "Who found it?" "Ray. He was looking for the spare key to the parts cage." "Why would my tag be in Cal's desk?" Tasha lowered her voice. "Ray says Cal brought it back from the distribution center the day you failed the bay." I looked at the grease on my glove. "Did Marcus ask for the tag number?" "He read it to me. 4716. That was mine." "Is the bay closed now?" Marcus locked it out himself. "Good. He wants you to call." The sticky note on my clipboard said all questions went through dispatch. I could almost feel Cal waiting for me to step around it. "Tell Marcus I'm assigned to another account and can't discuss his equipment without authorization. Put his request in the call log." "You're not calling him?" "I'm following instructions." Tasha was quiet for a beat. "You're getting scary." "I'm under a dock with a wrench." "That's not the part I mean." The service manager at Halpern, a cheerful man named Don who believed every mechanical problem could be fixed with penetrating oil, came around the corner. "You need a hand?" he called. "I need everybody to stop pulling release chains until I finish." He raised both palms. "I'm not touching anything." "You're holding the chain." He looked at his hand as if the clothesline had approached him socially. I finished the adjustment, striped the fasteners, and made Don cycle the platform while I stood clear. My shoulder throbbed where I had hit it. When I returned to the shop, Cal was waiting beside my parking space. "Why did you tell Marcus I refused to let you speak to him?" "I didn't speak to Marcus. He says you won't call without authorization." Tasha relayed his request. "Your written instruction says all questions go through dispatch." "You know, that doesn't apply to client callbacks. It says all non-emergency questions. A failed dock is an emergency." "Then why is Bay 14 still using the repair you ordered me to pass 2 weeks ago?" His face hardened. "Get inside." We went to the conference room. This time, Neil was there with Paula. Neil Beckett had a white mustache, a permanent squint, and the patience of a man who had spent most of his career explaining to customers that gravity was not covered under warranty. He kept a legal pad in front of him, aligned square with the table. Paula gestured to the empty chair. I remained standing. "Is this disciplinary?" "It's a fact-finding conversation," Neil said. "Then I'd like to know the facts being found." Cal sat across from him. "Marcus claims the bay is making noise." "What kind?" he said, knocking. "Underload?" "Yes." "Lateral or vertical movement?" Cal slapped one palm on the table. "This is not a technical meeting. It's a dock leveler. Every meeting about it is technical." Neil covered his mouth, but not before I saw the edge of a smile. Paula said, "Ray found an out-of-service tag in Cal's desk." Cal turned toward her. "We've covered this. You covered it with me. Lena hasn't heard your explanation." He looked at me. "I removed the tag because Marcus requested a clean control box after the bay was locked out with their own lock. Marcus put my tag back on before I left, and later asked me to remove it. Then why keep it in your desk?" "I intended to return it." To me? To inventory. My red tags were numbered and assigned. Used tags were supposed to stay with the repair packet, especially when they documented a failed inspection. Neil tapped his pen on the legal pad. Where is it now? On my desk. Bring it. Cal did not move. Paula's expression changed first. Cal, she said. He pushed back his chair, left the room, and returned with my tag. The wire had been twisted open and closed twice. My original notes remained on the front. Load test failed. Pin migration .343. Hinge tube distorted. Do not operate. Neil held out his hand. Cal gave it to him. Why wasn't this scanned into the job? Neil asked. Because the job was closed before I got back. By Lena's login. The assigned inspector field populated automatically. Her tablet didn't type the notes. I entered the final status as manager, under her employee number. Cal's chair creaked as he leaned back. I corrected the status after reviewing all available information. Neil turned to me. Did you approve the correction? No. Were you shown it? I found it after the job was closed. He wrote something on the pad. Cal pointed at me. She's been building a case since that afternoon. She's putting defensive language on routine tickets, encouraging Gus to write opinions outside his scope, and now she's using Marcus to force herself back onto the account. I refused to call Marcus, because you knew that would make him call again. That was clever enough to be almost flattering. Paula stared at the red tag in Neil's hand. What does .343 mean? 11:30 seconds of movement. And the acceptable movement? None at that location. Cal exhaled through his nose. The pin seated. Then it would have moved inward, I said. It walked toward the retaining collar. What would make it knock? Neil asked. The collar taking load every time the platform twists. Eventually, the retaining bolt will shear, or the tube will elongate further. Paula looked at Cal. You told me the sound was probably the lip keepers. It could be. The lip wasn't involved in the repair, I said. Everything on a leveler transfers vibration. Neil slid the tag into a clear plastic sleeve from his pad folio. Marcus wants a written response by tomorrow. Lena, prepare a technical assessment based on your inspection. Facts only. That's what I gave you the first time. I know. Cal looked at him. She's off the account. She won't contact the client. She'll give her assessment to me. I'm service manager, and I'm still operations partner. The room went still. Neil had spent years allowing Cal to run service without interference. He preferred vendor calls, fleet purchases, and long lunches with the bank manager. Cal had mistaken that preference for surrender. You planning to come out of retirement now? Cal asked. Neil's mustache moved when he smiled. I'd have to enter it first. I took the sleeve containing my tag. Cal reached for it. That is company property. So is Neil. Neil looked pleased. Paula didn't. Give it back to Neil, she said. I did. That evening, Paula came to my house without calling. I was in the garage replacing a cracked latch on my toolbox. The orange paint marker lay on the workbench beside a line of sockets. She stood outside the open door. Are you going to invite me in? You're already in. This is a garage. It has chairs. She moved a stack of shop towels off a folding chair and sat. I kept working. Cal says Neil is trying to push him out before the ownership buyout, she said. Neil was planning to sell his share to you. He still is. Then why would he damage the company first? He thinks Cal has too much control. Neil thinks that? She watched me fit the latch pin through the hinge. I think it too, she said. The admission should have satisfied me. Instead, I felt tired. How long? I don't know. That isn't true. She looked down at her hands. He's been changing labor estimates after jobs close. Changing or correcting? Changing. Moving hours between work orders to protect fixed price margins. Do the clients get overbilled? No, it affects internal job costing. That sounded like Cal turning a bad estimate into a good one by moving the loss somewhere nobody was studying. Not theft, not even unusual in small service companies. But it trained everyone, especially Cal, to believe a closed record was still negotiable. "You knew that before Bay 14, I said. "I knew he adjusted allocations. I didn't know he was changing technical scope. You knew he was comfortable rewriting the past." "He was trying to keep the company competitive." I set down the pliers. "Why are you here?" "I want you to tell me what you want." "From the company?" "From us." The distinction hurt more than I expected. "I want Cal to stop using you as a hallway around me," I said. "If he disciplines me, changes my route, or alters my work, we discuss it at work with Neil present. I'm not going to defend inspection results over dinner. I'm not going to listen to you explain his pressure as if pressure changes steel." "He's my husband, and I'm your employee. At work, act like an owner." She flinched. "You don't have to say it like that." "I've tried saying it gently." "Have you?" The question landed. I looked at the toolbox. I had spent most of my life being the sister who said the sharp thing and then stood beside it. Paula had spent hers sanding the edges off rooms before anyone else entered. Sometimes I used her patience as permission to avoid patience myself. "I could have called you from the site," I said. "It wouldn't have changed my result, but I could have called." "No," she said after a moment. "You shouldn't need family permission to fail a machine." She stood and brushed lint from the chair off her pants. At the garage door, she turned back. "Sunday dinner is canceled." "Just this week?" "I don't know." The next morning, I gave Neil a 2-page assessment with photographs, measurements, and the manufacturer's tolerance sheet attached. I left out Cal's threat and the write-up. Those belonged to the people problem. The doc had enough facts of its own. Neil read it at Tasha's counter. "Where's your original work order instruction?" he asked. "In my notebook." "Not the current one." "The version before Cal changed it." "The app only shows the latest revision." Tasha stopped sorting invoices. "That's not exactly true," she said. Cal's office door was closed, but she still lowered her voice. "Our app only shows the latest revision. The distribution center doesn't use our copy for invoice approval. Their procurement portal saves whatever we transmit." "Each job close?" Neil asked. "Each sync. They had an invoice dispute with another contractor last year, so Marcus asked us to turn on automatic submissions." I remembered Marcus standing against the wall while Cal wrote my reprimand. He had said almost nothing. "Who can see the saved versions?" I asked. "Marcus, their purchasing team. Probably anyone with contract access." Neil looked toward Cal's office. "Has he asked them for the record?" "Not that I know of," Tasha said. "Don't contact them," Neil told me. "I wasn't going to." "And don't tell Cal yet." That order sat badly with me. "I'm not helping you trap him. I'm trying to prevent him from making it worse. He already altered the job." Neil folded my assessment. "The contract review is next Thursday. Marcus asked Cal to bring the service history for all 12 bays." Right then, Cal's door opened. He came out carrying a clean reprint of my Bay 14 work order. The pass result was still under my employee number. Gus's measurement was absent. So was my photograph of the split orange stripe. Cal laid it on the counter between us. "This," he said, "is the official record we're taking to the client." I looked at the reprint without touching it. "What makes it official?" I asked. Cal tapped the company logo at the top. "The logo?" "The closed job record. The one you closed under my employee number." His eyes moved to Neil. "Are we doing this again?" Neil unfolded my assessment and placed it beside Cal's printout. "We're taking both." "No, we are not walking into a contract review carrying an internal dispute." The client asked for the service history. "This is the service history." "That's an invoice copy," Tasha said. Cal turned toward her. She took one step backward, then held her ground. "Technically, the service history includes attachments and sync activity." "I know how our software works." Yes, the single word had enough cinnamon-flavored dread in it to fill the office. Cal picked up his printout. "Neil, come into my office." Anything you need to say about this can be said here. I want a private conversation with my business partner. I'm Paula's business partner. I'm your employer." Cal looked at Paula. She had come out of her office and was standing beside the copier. "You're allowing this?" he asked her. "I want the complete record taken to the client." He laughed under his breath. "You have no idea what that will do." "To whom?" Paula asked. Cal's expression tightened. I watched my sister absorb that silence. It did not transform her. She did not suddenly become fearless or stop loving him. She merely reached for my technical assessment and aligned its pages against the counter. "Lena's report goes in the binder," she said. Cal walked into his office and closed the door hard enough to rattle the framed service awards. Tasha waited 3 seconds. "I'm guessing now is a bad time to ask about toner." Neil lifted Cal's clean reprint. "Make 3 copies of this." "We're low on toner." He squinted at her. "I felt timing mattered," she said. Cal took me off inspections for the week. The email called it an administrative measure to preserve client confidence. I spent Monday replacing dock seals in 94-degree heat and Tuesday cleaning years of paper dust out of a scissor lift at a box plant. Both jobs paid straight time. At home, I canceled a dental cleaning, moved my electric bill to the following pay period, and stood in the grocery aisle calculating whether coffee had become a luxury or remained a medical supply. Holding my line felt considerably more noble at Bay 14 than it did while choosing between 2 brands of canned tomatoes. Wednesday afternoon, Gus called me from the distribution center. "New hinge assembly came in," he said. "Cal approved the labor?" After Marcus put the bay on his executive downtime report. Funny how steel responds to management visibility. Ray and I pulled the old pin, retaining bolts bent. How bad? Another day and it would have sheared. I sat on the back step with my shoes off. Photograph it beside a ruler. Already did. And upload it to the open corrective ticket. Already did. Who are you and what have you done with Gus? My wife found my notes in her recipe box. She says if I'm going to store paperwork beside the lasagna, it better be useful. He became quiet. "Lena, Cal's telling people you're trying to take his job." "I don't want his job." "I know that." "Do they?" "Some do." The distinction mattered. A company was not a family. However, often people use the word when asking employees to absorb damage. Still, I had worked beside those technicians through frozen motors, flooded pits, bad coffee, and customers who believed emergency rates were a personal betrayal. I cared what they thought. "Finish the repair," I said. "That's all we can control today." After we hung up, I opened the photograph Tasha had taken of my closed work order. Pass, no defects. Observed after repair stared back at me beneath my employee number. For the first time, I let myself imagine leaving. There were other service companies. Some would treat a woman inspector as a novelty until the first time she diagnosed a problem their senior technician had missed. I had survived that before. I could survive it again. What stopped me was not loyalty to the Mercer name. It was the knowledge that if I left before the record was corrected, my false approval would remain attached to Bay 14. Cal would call my departure proof that I had been unstable, angry, impossible. Every clean inspection I had signed over 18 years would become slightly less clean. I did not need to win the company. I needed my name back. Thursday morning, Cal wore his charcoal suit, the one he used for bank meetings and funerals. He loaded the contract binder into Paula's car because she had decided to drive. Neil rode with them. I followed in my service truck. The orange paint marker rolled back and forth in the tray above the dashboard every time I turned. Cal had objected to my attending. Marcus settled that with an email requesting the technician responsible for the disputed inspection. It was the first time Cal had referred to me as the responsible technician without meaning competent. The distribution center's conference room overlooked the loading apron. 12 bay doors formed a row beyond the glass. Bay 14 was open, its new hinge assembly visible as a dark line beneath the platform. Marcus sat with Dana Holt from purchasing and Vic Sanderson, the center's operations director. Dana had a laptop open. Vic had the exhausted look of a man who had spent the morning discussing refrigerated freight. Cal began well. He explained the seasonal workload, the parts delay, the completed repairs across 11 bays, and the replacement now installed at Bay 14. He gave credit to Gus and Ray for finishing ahead of the revised schedule. He was specific, calm, and persuasive. Listening to him, I remembered why clients liked him and why Paula had trusted him with service. Then Vic asked why Bay 14 had been returned to use after a failed test. It wasn't, Cal said. Marcus's face remained still. Your work order shows it passed. The original test was inconclusive. The equipment was subsequently cleared after management review. By Ms. Mercer? Cal opened the binder. Lena declined to complete the certification. As service manager, I reviewed the repair and closed the order. Under her employee number, Marcus said. Our system retains the assigned technician in that field. We've identified it as a software limitation. Dana typed something. Cal removed my pink reprimand from a plastic sleeve. I had not known Paula still had it. We addressed the conduct issue internally, he said. Lena was formally disciplined for refusing to certify completed work and disrupting operations in the presence of client personnel. He slid the paper toward Vic. The same page that had made me feel small beneath 2 dead fluorescent tubes now lay under clean conference room lights. My notation appeared above my signature. Receipt, acknowledged only. Vic read it, then passed it to Marcus. Marcus glanced at the date and time. So at 2:46, you disciplined her for refusing to certify the repair. That's correct. But you just said you reviewed and cleared it independently. I did. Then why discipline her for refusing? Cal paused. Because of the way she handled the disagreement. The reprimand did not say that. It said refusal to certify completed repair. Marcus slid it to Dana. Open job 78214, he said. Cal placed one hand on the binder. I have the work order here. I want the saved job record. Dana turned her laptop so we could see the screen. The client portal opened to a timeline. Each synchronization appeared as a separate entry, stamped with the sender, device, and time received. At 6:12 that morning, Cal's original scope had transmitted, replace distorted rear hinge assembly. Do not return to service until loaded inspection. At 12:43, his edited scope replaced it in our app. Dress existing weld. Install oversize pin. Cycle test. Return to service. Attached to the same revision was an internal instruction Cal had entered for the field crew. Approve as repaired. Client needs Bay live by 4 o'clock. Replace hinge assembly at next PM. Cal stared at the screen. Dana opened the next saved entry. My failed load measurements appeared at 2:31, along with the photograph of the orange witness stripe split across the migrated pin. The red tag was visible at the edge of the image. Gus's original note had synchronized 6 minutes later. Tube measured .021 beyond manufacturer maximum. At 3:08, while I was in the conference room at Mercer, the job closed under my employee number. At 3:19, another revision removed the failed measurements and my photograph from the active invoice copy. The portal had saved that change too. Cal leaned toward the laptop. Those are working revisions. They aren't the final service record. They are records your system sent to us, Dana said. The original scope was entered before we knew the replacement assembly was unavailable. Marcus pointed at the internal instruction. You knew it needed replacement. I believed the temporary repair was sufficient for controlled use. You wrote return to service. With operational monitoring. Where? Cal looked down the timeline as if the missing words might appear if he waited. Vic turned to me. Did Mr. Rourke tell you to approve the repair? Yes. What exactly did he say? Sign it or I'll write you up. Cal's face flushed. That was part of a longer conversation. It was, Marcus said. I heard it. The room became very quiet. Traffic continued beyond the glass. A forklift entered Bay 11 carrying bottled juice, paused over the leveler, and rolled into the trailer. Cal looked at Paula. Say something. She held his gaze. Did you know the portal kept revisions? I knew it archived submissions. I didn't know it treated drafts as permanent. They weren't drafts, Tasha's process notes showed in the timeline. Each one had transmitted during an active service job. Neil opened his pad folio and removed the sleeved red tag. He placed it beside the reprimand. Marcus read my handwriting, then looked at Cal. How did this get from my control box to your desk? Cal's answer came slowly. I removed it after the bay was secured. I put it back on before Lena left. I believed your lock superseded it. You also believed your edited work order replaced the first instruction. Cal's eyes flicked toward the screen. That was the moment. It did not arrive with shouting. It arrived with his own competence failing him in the one place he had assumed he was strongest, controlling the record. Dana closed the binder he had brought. Vic said the distribution center would not cancel the contract that morning. 12 bays still required service, and changing vendors during the inventory surge would create its own risk. Renewal, however, would depend on Mercer replacing every temporary hinge repair completed under Cal's direction, paying the labor on Bay 14, and submitting a corrective plan that gave inspection authority independence from service scheduling. We also want Ms. Mercer listed as quality contact, Marcus said. Cal looked at me. She isn't management. She doesn't need to be, Dana said. She needs authority. Paula requested 2 days to respond. Vic gave her one. Back at the shop, Paula and Neil met with Cal behind a closed door for almost 3 hours. I worked at Tasha's counter correcting my employee record. The system would not delete the false pass without voiding the invoice, so we added a formal amendment linked to the client's archived timeline. At 5:20, Cal came out carrying the framed photograph from his office and a cardboard box of personal items. He stopped beside me. You could have called me before the loaded test, he said. I followed the work order. The first one. Yes. He looked tired rather than angry. That made him harder to hate. I was trying to save the contract, he said. I know. You think that makes it worse. I think it made you willing to spend my name. His mouth tightened. He shifted the box against his hip. For what it's worth, I didn't think the pin would move that far. For what it's worth, I wish you had been right. He left through the side door. Paula later told the staff that Cal had been removed as service manager. His estimating skill still had value, so he would work remotely on bids during a transition period, without authority over field records, staffing, or inspection. He lost the performance bonus tied to the distribution center margin. Whether he and Paula could separate their marriage from what he had done at work was a question she did not ask me to answer. Neil offered me the service manager position. I declined it. Then I gave him and Paula my terms: a quality and training role, restored overtime for the weeks I lost, independent stop work authority, unique logins that timed out properly, and revision alerts visible to every technician assigned to a job. Paula agreed to all of them. Her apology came later in my garage while I was organizing sockets. I kept explaining his pressure because it was easier than admitting what he did to you, she said. I let him punish you for making me look at it. She did not ask me to forgive her. That helped. We began with coffee on Wednesdays. Sunday dinners could wait. When the new hinge assembly at Bay 14 was ready for final inspection, Gus met me beneath the platform with his caliper. Recipe box is empty, he said. Tragic. My wife says paperwork lives in paperwork places now. We loaded the deck, held it at rated capacity, and measured twice. The pin stayed centered. The pressure held. No knock traveled through the frame. I drew a fresh orange line across the pin and collar. Upstairs, Marcus opened the completed job record. The instruction, measurements, photographs, and signatures appeared in order. My amendment had removed the false approval from my inspection history. I returned to the control box and took the red tag in my hand. The wire resisted for a second, bent from having been opened before. I straightened it against my thumb, removed the tag, and folded it once. Then I put it in my pocket and watched the first loaded forklift cross Bay 14 without the orange line moving at all.